welcome back to my channel. Today on Cooking with Maria, we're going back to my roots and making something that has been passed down in my family through the generations. I am so excited to share this recipe with you. Today we're making borscht. This soup is so nourishing and hearty and full of delicious nutrients. I have my recipe book in front of me because it is a long list of ingredients and it does take quite a while to make. However, with every spoonful, you'll know it was worth it with its vibrant color and uplifting flavor. First, we'll start by making the broth. Once the broth is ready, we'll be adding the rest of the ingredients to make the borscht itself. For the broth, we're going to need 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. Today, I'm using avocado oil. You'll also want 500 grams of veal and 500 grams of beef. You'll want either a shank or a shoulder cut with the bone in. We'll also need 2 bay leaves, 10 peppercorns, 1 teaspoon of salt, and half a bunch of parsley, as well as 1 carrot peeled and cut, 1 parsnip peeled and cut, and 1 onion peeled and cut. This will all be used for the bone broth that we'll be making, and then we're going to cook the actual soup. For that, you will need 1 onion, 1 carrot, 1 red bell pepper, 2 beets, 1 cabbage, if it is a small one like this one. If you have a larger cabbage, make sure you're only using half of a cabbage. You'll also need 1 potato, 2 garlic cloves, about a tablespoon fresh chopped basil, 4 tablespoons fresh chopped dill. You'll also need 2 tablespoons of ketchup and 2 tablespoons of red kidney beans. You'll want to be cooking this on chicken fat. I'm using schmaltz, about a tablespoon of that. You'll also want some salt and pepper to taste throughout the process. For the spice, we'll be using khmele, which is a Georgian spice mix. If you can't find this particular spice blend, it is okay to omit it for this recipe. It just gives it a little extra kick, in my opinion. You may also add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. To top it all off, you'll want some sour cream or mayonnaise and some fresh dill. And I think that's all the ingredients, so it is quite lengthy, like I mentioned earlier. All right, let's do this. Heat a large stock pot over medium-high heat and add 1 tablespoon of oil. Place veal and beef into the heated pot and thoroughly brown the meat on both sides for about 2 to 3 minutes per side. Remove the meat from the pot and set it aside. Prepare your aromatic vegetables for the stock. Then place onion, carrot, and parsnip into the pot. Thoroughly brown on all sides for about 2 to 3 minutes. If you'd like, you can deglaze with a splash of white wine. Scrape up all the lovely bits that are stuck to the bottom of the pan. Place the meat back into the pot along with 10 to 14 cups of water. Bring the broth to a boil and immediately turn the heat down to low until it begins to gently simmer. And now skim the fat from the top. Cover and bring to a boil. Then add the rest of the broth ingredients, the parsley, peppercorns, and bay leaves. Simmer half covered on medium-low heat for approximately 2 hours. 15 minutes prior to finishing, season to taste with salt. While the broth is boiling, we'll prepare some ingredients that we'll need for later. Let's get started with the potato. So I've just peeled it and now we're going to cut it into cubes that are bite-sized pieces. So approximately 1 inch each. Soak the diced potatoes in cold water, and you can even place it into the fridge to ensure the potatoes stay cool. I've pre-cut some of the vegetables over here. So there's some onions that I've covered because I will cry quite a bit if the onions are exposed. I've also cut the carrots, the red peppers, and I'm going to take care of the beets and the cabbage right now. So now for the cabbage, you want to remove the outer leaves first. And then what you can do is you can chop it up with a knife, or if you'd like, you can always use a food processor with a shredder or grater attachment, as I have right over here. Now we're going to cut the root off and cut the cabbage into small enough pieces to fit into the food processor. So the shredded cabbage is all ready, and now we're going to move on to the beets. So I've peeled the beets and now I'm going to cut them up, again into pieces that will fit into our food processor. Heat a medium-sized frying pan over medium heat and add a tablespoon of schmaltz. Now we'll be adding the onions into the pan. That goes in first. Saute about 2 minutes on medium-low heat. Add diced carrots to the fried onions and saute for 2 more minutes. And now it's time for the red peppers. Saute another 2 minutes. Place a cover over this and let it cook for about 4 to 5 minutes. So it's been about 4 minutes. We're going to take a look at what's happening over here. Excellent. Now we're going to add in the beets. This will give the soup a very vibrant color. At this point, we'll also want to add in the salt and pepper. Then we'll saute another 2 to 3 minutes. Now we'll add the ketchup and the apple cider vinegar. Fry for another 3 minutes and take it off the heat. So when the broth is almost ready and there's about 15 minutes left, we'll add the salt. To this, we're adding approximately a teaspoon. Now we can mix it all together. I'm using the same wooden spoon because I don't feel like washing dishes. So I'm trying to conserve the amount of dishes I wash, and that's okay because it'll all go into the same pot anyways eventually. Now the broth is almost ready, so we'll wait until it's fully finished and then we'll add these fried vegetables into the broth to make our borscht. Using a slotted spoon, we're going to fish out all of the solids, placing the vegetables along with the bay leaves into one bowl, and then we're going to place the meat in a separate place, and that will be on our cutting board because we're going to shred the meat after into bite-sized pieces. So once we're done separating the vegetables and the meat from the actual broth, I notice here that there's quite a bit of broth left over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it in a colander and make sure that we're not losing any of that delicious broth. And now we'll get rid of all these leftover vegetables and place them into our compost bin. So now I'm just shredding the meat into fairly large chunks so that they don't melt away into the soup. So now that we're all finished making our broth, we'll be adding in the cabbage first. Bring that to a boil, and once it's boiling, we'll reduce the heat to a medium-low and let it simmer uncovered for 5 minutes. So it's been 5 minutes since we put in the cabbage, and now we're going to add in our potatoes. So as you can see, I've already drained them, and we'll bring that to a boil again. And once it's up to a boil, we'll simmer it down to a medium-low and cook it for another 5 minutes. And now finally, we'll be adding in our vegetable mix that we fried earlier. Finally, we'll be adding in the meat along with our herbs, beans, and schmaltz. Let simmer for another 2 minutes. And now I promise this is the final step. We'll add in our garlic cloves. So the borscht is finally ready, and it did take quite some time. I started cooking it around lunchtime, and now it's dinner time. So I'm really excited to try this delicious, vibrant borscht. I did add some sour cream to it, as well as fresh dill. I also recommend eating it with a side of toast and preferably rye bread. So I'm going to mix it all together. Make sure to mix in the sour cream so you get that creamy flavor to it as well. Just like my mom makes. So delicious. It's a comforting bowl of goodness that is perfect for a winter's day or a chilly night. And to top it all off, it's nutritious and healthy. Thank you again so much for watching these videos. Make sure to comment down below if you have any suggestions or requests for future video recipes. Also, like the video and subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram at Greco Recipes. Have a wonderful day.